I'm really happy to talk to Alice Almeida today. Alice, tell us a bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yes. Well, look, thank you for asking me on today. So I have two career hats. One is I've worked in media for over 20 years. I won't tell you the exact amount because it will give my age away. So I head up a research and insights team for a company called Totally Awesome, which specifically is a media organization for kids, teens, and Gen Z. Um, so that is the everyday, day-to-day job that I do, and I absolutely love it. The other career hat that I have is I'm the founder of the Amber Network, which is an online community for those who are going through infertility or fertility treatment. So two very different roles and responsibilities, but I'm very passionate about both.
Alice, tell us a little bit more about that journey. How did you get to that point?
Okay, so how did I get into media? I actually did an environmental science degree and somehow stumbled into media. I started in media sales, and the way that I have succeeded was by failing big time. I'm not a salesperson. I'm fairly useless at sales, in fact. And it was my boss at the time that went, "You ask too many questions. You don't just shut up and take the money. So I really think that you'd be suited in research and insights." And that was over 20 years ago. And I absolutely love it. I love it because I get to research people. I get to research what makes them tick. What do they like? What do they dislike? What frustrates them? And in particular, in the space that I'm in now, it's with kids and teens. And we do a lot of work in the mental health component. So it's really important for us to understand where Gen Alpha and Gen Z's minds are at. In particular, post-COVID, the rising cost of living crisis. So there's a lot going on that we need to track and monitor. How did I get into the Amber Network? Well, I did IVF for 5 years to conceive my first daughter, Maya, who's 5. And it was the most soul-destroying, heartbreaking, challenging, exhausting thing that I've ever done in my life. It almost broke me. It almost broke my marriage. Everyone I speak to that has been through fertility treatment basically says the same thing. Because I come from a media background, it was after we tried for baby number 2 and had failed and had no more embryos and were basically told it would never happen. And I'd also been told that I could never conceive naturally because I have stage 4 endometriosis and technically only one ovary. And it was at this point that my journey with IVF was coming to an end. I was heartbroken because I desperately wanted my daughter to have a sibling. I'm one of 5. My husband's one of 3, all very close to our family, and it just broke my heart that she'd be raised without a sibling. So after my IVF journey, I went through 6 months of soul searching, healing. I met a great psychologist, focused on my health, saw a great naturopath. And then lo and behold, I fell pregnant naturally for the first time ever in my life at the age of 40 and a half. But it was actually just before then, literally like a month before I fell pregnant. We were in COVID lockdown and I was out walking my dog that was literally the only thing we were allowed to do. And I got really angry. I got angry that there were so many people that were going through fertility treatment and falling through the gaps. There was so many people finishing treatment and being completely broken. There were so many marriages broken up through it all. And it was as if the fertility clinics back then didn't consider mental health or any of that other non-medical side of going through infertility and fertility treatment. And so it was that anger that just went, you know what, there needs to be somewhere where people can go to feel part of a community, where you can feel less alone, less isolated, less of a failure, and somewhere where you can get a lot of information that you understand that's not written in medical jargon. You want to hear other people's stories. But a big part of the Amber Network is mental health, because mine did take a battering. I've never experienced those kind of mental health challenges. I was not at all tasked to deal with them. And so I've put in a lot of work to make sure that a lot of the content that I deliver is, helping people look after their mental health and their overall health as well. So My media career was started out of failure, and my Amber Network career was started out of anger. So two negatives, which have led to two incredible positives.
Alice, I love listening to you and thank you for telling your story so openly because it's struggles that women struggle with all
Mm,
over the world, right? And we are so
mm-hmm,
often left in the dark and alone,
mm-hmm,
feeling like we are never gonna cope because we're alone in it. And so I am so thankful for your service because it's a seriously powerful service to women.
mm,
And that's how we gain, I think, this power that we can transform something negative into something positive. As
yeah.
like you setting up things out of necessity by going
Mm-hmm.
through dark times. So thank you for shedding the light on it. Alice, I have so many questions coming up that is not sort of the usual, but I'm wondering, just in terms of your media career, so where are
Yes.
we at with the Gen Alpha and Gen Z? So where do you, how would you describe this time that we live in with teenagers at this point?
Look, I think there's two sides to that. The first is we're not giving them enough credit. This is a really smart and caring generation that's coming through. They're also a generation that aren't going to take any nonsense. So they get called lazy, they get called demanding, they get called entitled, but you know what? They're just a generation that won't put up with rubbish. So where we were, well, my generation was raised, smile and nod and be polite. This generation is not. They're fighting back, and I love them. They're passionate about social issues, and they're vocal. And it's actually, I have two girls, and it made me reassured for their future, knowing that this next generation through is not that's coming through is not going to mess up like the boomers and other generations before them. So there's that. But I also am quite concerned from a psychology perspective. I'm not a psychologist, but I work with an incredible pediatric psychologist at Totally Awesome. Her name is Amanda Abel. And we do a lot of work in mental health, like I said. I don't think we've seen the full impact of COVID lockdown. I think these poor kids and teens had to deal with something that their minds might not have been at a capacity to deal with. As adults, we struggled. Can you imagine how a kid would feel? So I think we're going to see quite a bit of roll-on effect and impact from COVID lockdown that we haven't yet seen. So that's something that we're watching really closely.
Alice, thank you so much for that because I absolutely 100% agree, and I think we've sort of put it under the carpet, as we do so
Mm.
well. Alice, so the Amber Network, that is really hugely exciting. Tell us all the sort of remit of it. So you have an online community, you have content you create. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so it's an online subscription, free subscription network. It's all funded via me, well, and my husband. But basically, we were toying with the idea of making it a paid subscription, but I could not bring myself to make these people pay because I was there, and you watch every single penny that goes out because fertility treatment is so expensive. And I've heard some stories of women who have had to sell their grandmother's jewels, who have had to sell the deposit for their house. It's heartbreaking. So I can't ask them to pay for it. So we are going down a sponsorship route, which is much better. So anyway, it's an online subscription network. In there, there's a couple of key sections. As I mentioned, there's the mental health and self-care section. So we've got yoga, meditation, breathwork videos, words from a psychologist. We also have a community forum section where you can chat with other people that are going through fertility treatment or infertility. We have a directory of services. It's Australia only, but at least seeing the directory of services, it helps you understand what kind of services you might be looking at. One of the challenges I found when I went through it was I didn't know what I needed to know. And so I only found out about acupuncture 2 years in. I only found out about a naturopath 4 years in. And so the director of services kind of helps educate in that space. The other is the media section, and this is the one where a lot of my attention and focus is because I interview experts in their field. I interview people that are going through it. And I interview people that you might actually come across in your journey. So that, as again, could be fertility naturopaths, dietitians, it could be energy healers. When you go through IVF, you are willing to try anything and everything. So whatever people want to try, I like to be able to reach out to a person that specializes in that field, interview them so that people can be informed. That's one of my biggest frustrations, is all these decisions were being made over my body and I didn't feel like I was informed on what was actually happening. Um, so that's basically the Amber Network. I have a lot of the activity happens on Instagram. I think that's where most people like to hang out. It is a protected area. I become very defensive of my Amber Network clan. We do get a couple of difficult people and I just block them and shut them down, because this is a safe space. It's a healing place, and I don't want any kind of nonsense on that.
Alice, so what motivates you going forwards and keeping this going? You've been through the journey, you've had your children. What is your main motivator?
It is my children, actually. So I look at my first daughter, who was IVF born, and my second daughter, who was, naturally conceived. Both are incredible miracles in their own way. But I still look at my first daughter, Maya, and I still can't believe she's mine. I still can't believe she's here. So many times I was told it wouldn't happen. And actually, when I conceived her with IVF, I'd given up at that point. I was done. I couldn't do it. My marriage was, yeah, like I say, at breaking point, but it was not in a great shape. And so I look at my kids now, and I'm like, there's so many women out there that are feeling the way that I felt, and I hate that. I hate that there's so many women that are heartbroken, lost, and that are abusing themselves mentally. Like you put so much toxic thought on yourself. You think you're a failure. You think you're a dud. I mean, I've been very vocal about this, but at one point I told my husband to leave me. Even though I adore the pants off him, I was like, you want to be a dad? I can't give it to you, so leave me. He obviously got quite angry about that and didn't. But there's so many other women out there that are feeling like that, and I hate that. So that's why I'm pushed to deliver the Amber Network.
I mean, I can't thank you enough for your words, Alice, because it will resonate with so many. And I just wanted to say I really feel you. So thank you for
Oh,
that.
thank you.
Alice, what are you most proud of?
I I'm most proud of the Amber Network. Obviously, I'm most proud of my daughters, but but I'm most proud of the Amber Network because what I didn't realize is I was launching a fertility support community when I hadn't really dealt with my fertility struggles, and so I I got triggered continuously. Every time I interviewed someone, I'd stop the video, I'd cry for an hour, and then I'd pick myself back up. It was really, really hard. And it came to one point where my husband said, I love you for doing this, and I'm so proud of you, but you need to stop because you're going to break. It was at that point that I reached out to a great psychologist, and she really kind of helped me through all of that. But I'm really proud of myself for building the Amber Network, because there were so many times where I could have chucked it all in and said it's too hard, but I just knew that there was such a big need, and I just felt like it was something I had to do.
Alice, I think that women often start ventures or businesses because there's a real need and because it's part
Mm-hmm.
of our healing journey. So that's what I hear when I listen to you.
Mm-hmm. It sure is. It was huge healing. It was very therapeutic eventually.
Alice, I'm feeling you. What top tips would you give to other women that are struggling with fertility right now?
Look, it's really hard because when you're in the fertility trenches, you're getting advice left, right, and center. My biggest bit of advice is your mental health is the biggest thing that you need to focus on. This is the time that you need to be selfish. You need to put you first, even before your husband. Yes, he's going through it, or your partner, I should say. They're going through it as well. But you are the one that is getting the injections, getting the scans, getting the blood tests, getting the bad news. You're the one that's putting the pressure on yourself about feeling like a failure if it didn't work or if you got bad news. don't like look after you, look after your mental health, whether that's through meditation, whether that's time out, whether it's doing something that brings you happiness, gratitude journals. Please just be kind to yourself and look after yourself, because that is honestly the most important thing in all of this. Because, yeah, as I said, too many women come out of this completely broken.
Alice, and what are your plans, your dreams, your goals for your future?
So, taking the Amber Network even bigger than it is, where it completely exceeded my expectations when I launched it, which on one side I was really happy about, but on the other side I was really upset about, because it just showed that there was a significant problem out there. So I just want to keep interviewing experts, keep bringing information, keep, bringing this community together, helping women feel like they're not alone, that they're not a failure, that they're not isolated, and just keep giving back, because as I said, it's kind of my calling. I feel like this is what I need to do. So the future is just focusing on the Amber Network and looking after all the people that are going through it.
Thank you so much for this really inspiring conversation.